it hasn't really been recorded yet as much as it should be. Guys have written endless numbers of books on the pyramid climbers and the status seekers and all that sort of thing. But I think one of the most interesting phenomena of our time, and probably more significant than all the rest of the corporate business and the thing of the status and the other directed and the inner-directed crowds and the lonely crowds and all the rest of it that books have been written endlessly on and plays have been written about, is the growth of meism, which is a very subtle thing, and it's so subtle that sometimes it's often difficult to detect. For example, there was a recent article, and this takes many forms. There was a recent article in the Saturday Evening Post, and the article was about actually it was about poverty. It was about poverty in America, and it particularly among certain sections of our society. And the article was called "The Invisible Americans," and it was about migrant workers and American Indians and so on, people who just were not able to work in our society and were really in dire, tremendous poverty, and something had to be done about it. Well, here's an answer, a letter, which I thought should be conveyed to show this meism growing. Here's an answer, and he says, "What is your magazine trying to do?" This is a letter to the editor. "What is your magazine trying to do? Undermine the peace of mind with socialist or big government propaganda? Everyone knows that in a capitalist economy where everyone follows his own profit-making motive, all society will automatically benefit." In there, at that point, I will insert, "Oh yeah. It is the duty of our business leaders to automate for higher profits. If a few million inefficient people don't fit, well, survival of the fittest, you know." I won't even give this guy. Now, I presume, of course, this is a political philosophy, by the way, that's being expressed by many people today. If they don't make it, too bad. There's another way of putting it. I got mine, now you get yours, buddy. Well, this is a new thing, really. Oh, it's always been with us, but it has not yet, in our society, achieved the respectability that it has today. So don't come around and say, well, people have always been that way. Sure, they've always been that way, but they've always had to be sneaky about it. They've always had to say it to themselves, hell with him, you know. But when you have a giant political slogan that literally says that, then you've got something else going. And it's got all kinds of ramifications. Now, I suppose, of course, that this letter writer has plans to get rid of these, quote, few million inefficient, unfit people. Yes. There was another society I remember that had a thing they called the Ultimate Solution, when they had a lot of people that they claimed didn't fit into their society. So you know, there are all kinds of things that are beginning to develop now. One of the most amusing facets of this deification of the selfish person in our time is in the show business world. Now, again, don't accuse me of being too much involved with show business, because I'm not. What I am interested in, though, is the theater and the TV world, in short, show business world, as, in a way, reflecting the true mores of a country, as opposed to the stated ones in sermons and in editorials and the New York Times and all this. That the real thing is being done right under our noses, and the thing that we applaud and laugh at is the thing we really believe in. That's the thing we believe in. Now, the stuff we write in the big ponderous editorials, forget it. This is the kind of stuff that guys have been carving in stone forever, you know, and all the while the mesas are rising and falling off stage, and guys are wringing each other's necks, and all the while they're carving stuff like "Justice is all," and great big stone axes. Well, forget the stuff that's carved in the stone walls. Look around. Now I'll give you an example of that. More and more in our theater, if you've been going to the theater, you'll see some of these, that the guy which originally was vilified in American fiction, in other words, he was pointed out as a real rotten so-and-so, and he was the man that the man who wrote was angry about. More and more, he's achieving the status of a hero, and he's applauded. Now, I'm not talking about the lovable villain, not at all. I'm talking about something else. That his very actions are applauded, and the people who oppose him, who in a sense, are honest or try to play the game right, are always pictured as boobs, idiots, fools, and phonies. That if you don't cheat, you're called a real phony in business. That's a new term. It's a new way to do it. And in short, the guy that does not break the law he's a phony. He wants to break the law, but he doesn't. That's real phoniness. That's real phoniness. Well, now, I've seen several examples of these. One of the most recent examples is in How to Succeed Without Trying. You know this one with Robert Morris? Here was a guy that if you knew him in the office, you'd gladly kill him. You'd gladly slice his throat from ear to ear. But the reason you cheer him is because 90% of the audience believes that. They work that way. They phony it all the way on up, and so they sit there and applaud. Hey, Bobby, author, and they're going like mad because the guy who is the absolute phony rises to great heights and finally takes over the business, and everyone's glad at the end that he did, because it seemed that he was the good one. He was the right one. And I can tell you this, that the guy that originally wrote the book upon which this was based was using this character to show you how rotten so many people are in our world. It was truly satire. He was not approving of this guy's modus operandi. To apply very strong morality to other people, to really demand absolute morality on other people, and to allow yourself the widest possible latitude of morality and call it freedom is one of the more moving aspects of this kind of double think, which is prevalent and which can be found in many of the plays, many of the dramas, and so on today. Have you noticed that today, almost invariably, the person who breaks the law or is the murderer winds up in one way or another being the hero, or at least the one with the sympathy. He's the one that you sympathize with. This is a worldwide phenomenon and is growing to almost unbelievable bounds. So I suspect that in the end that the only people who will be the really bad people in a society will be the people who object. Say to killing, or they object to people hitting each other. Now remember this, though, that most of the people who are the great moralizers of today do object to killing, and they object to violence and hitting and one thing and another, but they don't object to it if the right side does it. They only object to it on one side, generally. This is a part of I suppose, that dual morality. But it's fascinating. I'd love to see Steve Lawrence playing Sammy Glick. I remember Sammy Glick. I can think of a lot of great books that you can bring back. I wonder what would happen if they tried to remake, say, Dracula today. Sure. Oh, yeah. Who would you get for Dracula? Let's see. Tony Curtis would be good. He's very pale in a lot of pictures anyway. You could just spray a little white paint on him. He'd be a great Dracula, wouldn't he? Very good. It's. I guess nobody wants to be loathed today, and no one wants to admit that there is such a thing in our world as evil, especially if it has to do with making the scene. If it has to do with making your own pile, there can't be any evil. The only kind of evil that we will recognize today are the great generalized evils, like hate. We talk about hate. We talk about things we use these things so easily, and yet I wonder whether Sammy Glick hated. You know the book at all? Well, it is my thesis that Sammy Glick was one of the prime haters of all time, in the most subtle of all possible ways, and yet that kind of hate is not really put down anymore. Yes. Yeah, he was the greatest hater of all time. That's, as a matter of fact, why Bud Schulberg laid him down the way he did, and that's why I suppose I'm sure that if did you see Elmer Gantry? Well, did you notice that you couldn't help kind of loving old Elmer as he was played by Burt Lancaster, who did a good job in it? Lancaster's I think did a good job, but he sure didn't bring out the evil that is in the Gantry. Oh no. And there are plenty of those Gantrys around. Really, you go back and the kind of hatred, not hatred really, but the anger that a guy like Lewis put into writing this book, of course, was dissipated by the color screen. And it was dissipated by the kind of engaging performance that a man like Lancaster can't help giving because he's an engaging actor. Then you go on to, of course, I'm sure he didn't try to do that, but there it is, he did it. There have been others. Now let's see. I wonder how they would do today, say, talk about some of the great evil people of all time. I wonder how they would do some of the more colorful passages of, say, Jonathan Swift's work. Let's take in Gulliver's Travels. Did you see the cartoon version of Gulliver's Travels a few years ago? Did you see that? You should have, because it was an example of Walt Disneyism at its worst. And yet you couldn't help but love. Even the Yahoos, were kind of lovable. Boy, that would have popped Swift's cork. I'll tell you that in spades. And yet because you see, we don't like the kind of satire. We all talk about satire, but we really don't want satire anymore. We want moralizing. We want always satire to apply to the other idiots. We really do. When real satire ever shows up, believe me, it never is really commercial, and it causes fistfights. It does not get approved by the New York Times, and genuine satire is never done on television. I can tell you that. Not really, because satire, you see, is talking about people. Hence, it would get everybody mad. We call satire when we're talking about a single individual or a single incident. So if I come on and do a satire on the AMA, for example, that's called satire. But if you do a satire on people, literally on the kind of attitudes that people have, you will find that in general, love is not one thing you're going to get, or applause, or agents. If I'm sure that if How to Succeed was done with the slashing, wildly bitter, satirical sense that was through Shepard Mead's work, which was anti that guy. I hope you know that. It was anti this character. I'll tell you a book that would make a good musical on that score. If you want to water down life, is the book that William H. White wrote. I forget the name of it now. A couple of years ago, and one of the great chapters that White wrote was a chapter on which he discussed on how, if you were going into an office, on how to beat all the psychological placement tests. How to answer the things that they know. Did you know for example, if you're given a question that says, what would you rather do? Go to church, go to a ball game, read a book, watch television, or go to the Playboy Club? Which one are you supposed to answer if you're going to be a healthy individual of our time? Right, you hit it. You'd make a, that's right, all right, George. And you'd bring your little key with you. And yet, if you really answered it truthfully, you're going to be put down as a nut. Generally, really, especially if you read a book. Oh yes, that's a sick, introspective, crowd-oriented individual who will be a lot of trouble in sales meetings. And yet, I'm sure that if they did it on the musical stage, he would come out looking great doing this stuff. And yet this character was satirized by White as being a product of our world. The double thinker, the double talker, new speak, I guess is the best way to put it. New speak, new think, new world, new swing.